What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. Now, before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and in case you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting a 6.52-inch IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 269, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 90Hz PLS TFT display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 270, and a 20:9 aspect ratio as well. So between the two, the displays are essentially going to be the same. They're roughly the same size, same dimensions, and the resolution and image quality are pretty much the same as well. The only real difference here is that with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, we are again getting a 90Hz refresh rate, whereas with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, we're only getting a standard 60Hz display. And really the only thing this is going to do is make the movement on the screen with the A13 5G a little bit faster and smoother. So the A13 5G might feel a little bit more premium to use, but in general, when you're actually using the phones, you're honestly probably not going to see a huge difference in these displays. But that being said, for what they are, either display is definitely going to be at least good enough for most activities. Now for storage, both phones are getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion. So while it's definitely not amazing, 64GB, especially for more entry-level phones like these, is definitely at least acceptable. Now for security features, both phones do have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners right here on the power keys, so definitely a great spot for them. And it's nice that we're getting multiple different options besides a pin to unlock the phones. But starting with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, let's try out the fingerprint scanners. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, both phones do have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, we got a typical water drop notch for the front-facing camera. This camera is 5 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup, with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. Then for video, this phone has a max recording quality of 2K in the rear camera and 1080p in the front. With the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, we got another water drop notch front-facing camera. This camera is also 5 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. And for video, the A13 5G has a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras. So in general, both phones do have pretty good camera setups for what they are. Unfortunately, neither phone has an ultra-wide camera, which is really too bad, but at least they do have macro cameras, and when it comes to regular photos and more basic features like portrait mode, both phones will actually do pretty well. That being said though, on one hand, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, again, this phone can record 2K videos, which I'm not really sure how useful that actually is. I personally never record in 2K myself. When I want a quality above 1080p, I'm just gonna go right to 4K, but if you do want to be able to record in 2K, then keep in mind, the Revvl 6 can do it, but the A13 5G can only record in 1080p. That being said, on the other hand, when it comes to photos in general, the quality we're getting with the A13 5G is significantly better. So if you're taking a lot of pictures, then I would definitely recommend going with the A13 5G. But again, on the other hand, if you're recording more videos than you are taking photos, then the Revvl 6 5G, being able to record 2K videos, might be a better choice for you. Now, when it comes to RAM and processor, the actual specs for these phones are pretty much the exact same, both of them getting 4GB of RAM and the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processors. That being said though, in my experience, I have found the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G for whatever reason to be a little bit faster, so if you're going to be on your phone a little bit more, then this might be a better choice. That being said though, the difference isn't really huge because again, after all, they do have the same processor, and with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, although it's technically the slowest 5G phone Samsung makes, for more basic daily activities like web browsing, social media, stuff like that, it will at least get the job done. Now, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both phones, and here are the results I got. So again, as you can see here, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G does have quite an advantage, but that being said, benchmark tests really aren't everything, so definitely take this with a grain of salt because after all, these phones do have the same processor, so in real life, the actual performance difference is really only going to be so much. But again, between the two, if you do want slightly better performance, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 will have an advantage, but again, regardless, for more basic activities and light use, the A13 5G is still going to be perfectly fine. Now for the batteries, both phones are really good, but the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G does have a bit of an advantage with a 5000 mAh battery versus a 4500 mAh battery with the T-Mobile Revvl 6. So on one hand, it's not really a huge difference. It's definitely not like the battery life we get with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is bad. But that being said, if you do want the best battery life between the two, then the A13 5G, while again not having a huge advantage, is still going to have at least noticeably better battery life. So definitely keep this in mind. In addition to this, Both phones do support 15-watt fast charging, so while it's definitely not the best fast charging you can get, in my experience with these phones, the charging speed is at least going to be decent. Now another thing to keep in mind here is that with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, we are getting NFC, whereas we're not with the T-Mobile Revvl 6. Now in case you don't know what it is, NFC is the main technology behind contactless mobile payment services, so if you like to use tap and pay and that feature is important to you, then you will want to go with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? Now in general, this is actually a pretty close one, because in a lot of ways, these phones are nearly the same. If I can remember right, when I was comparing the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G to the Revvl 6 Pro, which of course is the more premium version of this phone, I think I actually decided the Revvl 6 Pro was a little better. And since the difference between the regular Revvl 6 and the Revvl 6 Pro isn't really huge in my opinion, that really just goes to show the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G and the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro in so many ways are actually really close. That being said though, despite this, I would personally still go with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. The main reason here is that with this phone's camera, the photo quality you're going to get is so much better that if you're taking a lot of pictures and photo quality really matters to you, you will get a much better experience with the A13 5G. In addition to this, again, the A13 5G does actually have NFC, and for me, at this point in 2023, not having NFC is honestly a deal breaker, and I feel like every phone at this point should have it. In addition to this, again, the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G does have a slightly larger battery, so if battery life is more of a priority for you, then this is definitely something to think about. That being said though, on the other hand, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G again does have slightly better performance. And again, when it comes to stuff like the displays and storage, for example, these phones are honestly so similar that they're pretty much interchangeable. So while again, I would personally go with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G because of the NFC, camera, and battery, if you do want faster performance, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 still will have an advantage. But in general, at the end of the day, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone for more basic activities, despite their differences, you're really not going to go wrong with either phone. But this concludes my comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the video description where I will be linking to several other videos about each phone, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.